Okay, so now we're back inside the editor. And so what we're doing is we're going to declare a variable called h2c. And now we're going into the setup function, and we're going to create an element after the h2a element that we created. So here we're using the create element command, and we're going to give some instructions to the user. So we're going to say, please use the slider below to change the size of the crazy bubble. And so now we put that element into the h2c variable. Now we save. Okay, so now we see the syntax. So we use the create element command. The create element command has two parameters. The first parameter is the element that we're creating. The second parameter is what it says inside that element. And so the element is basically giving us directions for the slider that we're going to create. Okay, so now we're back inside the code editor, and we're going to use the create slider command. And so this command is going to create a slider. And so we put in 3 numbers, and then we put it inside a variable called slider1, because that makes sense. It's the first slider on the page. I think it's the only slider on the page, but anyway, that's okay. So slider1, so we declare the slider1 variable too. So we're saving and refreshing, and now we see there's a slider on the page below the h2c element. Now, the slider doesn't work right now because we haven't hooked it up to anything, but it appears. So here is the code that creates a slider. So we create the slider and we put it inside the slider1 variable. And also we declare the slider1 variable too. Okay, so here is a breakdown of the create slider command. So the create slider command needs to be spelled exactly like this. It's one word, create slider, and the S is a capital letter. And then it has 3 parameters. So the first parameter is the minimum value, the second parameter is the maximum value, and the third parameter is the start value. So here we're saying that we want the minimum value of the slider to be 50 pixels, we want the maximum value of the slider to be 200 pixels, and we want the start value to be 100 pixels. And of course, the parentheses are what start and end the parameters, and JavaScript statements end with a semicolon. Okay, so now we're back into the editor, and now we can see, let's see. Okay, so now I'm changing the style of the element that's above the slider, so the h2c element, because it looks pretty bland, just being black and white. So we're changing the background color to 100, 200, and 0, which is a nice shade of green. And we're also changing the, we're also going to use the style command to change the text color to white. And I add a semicolon, okay, and then I save and refresh. Yeah, and now we can see that the element has a green background. It has a green background and white text. And here's the code that made it. So we used the style command on the h2c element, and we gave the background color a value of 100, 200, and 0, which is a nice light green, sort of yellowish green. And then we also made the text color white. Okay, so now we're into the code editor again. The image command is what displays the Crazy Bubble image. And so using the value, the .value command for the slider variable is what pulls the value from the slider, and we use that to set the width and the height of the image. And so here we see the actual syntax for it, right? So the image command has 5 parameters. So the first one's the image, the second one's the X position, the third one's the Y position, but the fourth and fifth parameters are always the width and always the height. And so by using slider1.value, we're using the, we're pulling the value from the slider and using it to set the width and the height of the image that is displayed, which is the image of the Crazy Bubble. So the reason that the slider, the value of the slider is in the draw function is because we want the value to change dynamically, right? So if the user is sliding the slider back and forth, we want it to change right away, right? So the draw function is looping 60 times a second. So that's the reason why the value of the slider is used inside the draw function, so that the user will get immediate feedback right away and the size of the image will change immediately. Okay, so now we're back and we're clicking on the canvas and we see it changes color and we see that the Crazy Bubble changes images. And the slider changes the size of the Crazy Bubble. But we want to change the values of the slider because the bubble seems to be a little bit small. So now I'm changing the value to 80, 250, and 150. We save and refresh, and now we see that the slider has different values and the size of the Crazy Bubble is different. Okay, so here we see the minimum is 80 pixels, the maximum is 250 pixels, and the start value is 150 pixels. So now the image of the Crazy Bubble will be a lot larger than it was before. And it will be clearer and it will look really good. And that's it for now.